Stop the trial. He's innocent. That's what I said out loud, in a room that wasn't built for me, and for a second, the air didn't move. The judge froze mid-swing, reporters leaned so far over the rail, I thought someone would faceplant. And Cole Ashford, the man everyone already decided was a monster, turned like he'd seen a ghost, and whispered, "Naya, you shouldn't be here, I know, but I was, because somebody had to be the one who didn't look away. I wasn't born brave. I learned it wiping fingerprints off crystal and folding shirts that cost more than my rent. 2 years on the Ashford estate taught me where people hide things, not just jewelry or letters, but shame, excuses, whole stories, and the weak. Elise died, the story they told made no sense if you'd been there. Like I had, Cole was burning up with fever, sweat soaking the sheets, couldn't take 3 steps without leaning on the doorway. Yet the state had a recording that sounded exactly like him, a voice in the dark saying something ugly. They had signatures on transfers he supposedly approved while he could barely hold a pen. Neat, right? Too neat. You know what I mean. So when the judge said, "State your name," I said, "Naya Carter." And when she asked why I was there, I said, "Because the evidence everyone is clapping for is lying, not loud, not dramatic, just steady." And then I pulled a flash drive from my old leather tote laundry corridor camera, an orphaned feed from before the upgrade. I kept a copy, because when you're the help, you learn to keep receipts. Nobody listens the first time. They didn't play it to the crowd. Not yet. They took it to a side room, brought in an analyst with coffee on his sweatshirt and waveforms in his eyes. By afternoon, the judge read the report, slow enough to make the words heavier. The voice on the state's recording wasn't Cole, near certain match to Victor Hale. And if you've never met Victor, picture the kind of man who prefers second-row power. The consultant in the perfect suit who smiles for your side while feeding the other one lines. When I pointed at him earlier and said, "It's him," people smirked with their eyebrows. When the result landed, the smirks died, marshals stepped closer, Victor didn't blink, and Cole, barely breathing, whispered, "You did this to us." Truth is, I kept that feed because my grandma taught me to keep proof when people don't plan to believe you, and because I knew the laundry hall better than anyone. Past the mirrored wall in the study, there's a safe that opens if you press the frame just wrong. Elise kept it on her birthday. Code simple human inside were ledgers so neat, they looked typed, a metal box, a thumb drive that said, "Private. Do not erase," in her handwriting. We hit play, Elise's voice, calm, no longer patient. "I know what you're doing, Victor," his voice, smooth like ice. "I'm protecting Cole," she said. "You're stealing." He poured a drink. She said, "If anything happens to me, this goes everywhere." I paused because sometimes your heart needs to catch up to your ears. Motive method, arrogance. Yeah, that happened. Victor didn't show up to court the next morning. Surprise, he ran toward a bed and breakfast in Asheville, where the hallways smell like lemon cleaner and history. Rain turned the streets to mirrors. We came in 2 SUVs. Pierce, the defense attorney, and a marshal slid to the back. Captain Ortiz and I took the side inside. Victor had a suitcase gaping on the bed, a burner phone lit on the desk, and a gun that made his hand shake. "You really going to shoot a housekeeper?" I asked. He hated that word. "You followed me," he said. "I followed the truth," I said. "It's louder than your footsteps." Cole stepped out from the shadow behind me and said, "You burned down my life and sold me the ashes." Victor set the gun on the desk, because even cowards recognize a corner. Back in court, he did what men like him do when it gets hot. He talked, admitted planting the fake audio, admitted forging Cole's signature, while he was sick, swore he never touched Elise. Maybe I'm not the jury. I'm the woman who brought a voice out of a hallway and made the room hear it. The jury came back days later with faces like they'd been holding one breath, not guilty. The words dropped and Cole just put both hands on the table's shoulders, falling like a bag finally set down. If you think that's where stories end, You don't watch the credits. The ledgers weren't just about Victor. They mapped a whole swamp transfers to shell companies with names that sound like hiking gear, consulting checks for work nobody could explain. And the threads tied to one name. Patrick Kincaid, Cole's father's best friend, board chair, smiling firefighter who set the fire. He sent me flowers after the verdict. I didn't keep them, I kept digging. A week later, the brakes on my Civic failed at a four-way in Bronzeville. The car spun, hydrant blew my chest, hit the belt so hard I saw static. The mechanic said the line was cut. I said a prayer and went back to work. Fear is a compass. It points where the truth lives. Elise must have known it would get ugly under those ledgers. She'd scribbled a line of numbers and one word. Failsafe. The numbers pinned a dirt road 2 hours west. A plain cabin that looks like a postcard you don't buy, same trick at the frame. Another box printed emails, call logs. A drive labeled Kincaid. V and a new name that tasted like metal. Rowan Vale. Former Intel. Private contracts, no photographs that weren't a blur. If Victor was chess, Rowan was go. The emails weren't rumors, they were plans. How to move money without fingerprints. How to push Elise out without a vote. How to feed the DA. A story that hit the beats, and then a line that still turns my stomach hard. The housekeeper is watching her act before either of them talk. You know what I mean? We didn't dump it online. Chaos feeds the people who live on it. We handed the whole package to a task force captain with a spine and waited long enough to line up warrants in 3 states. Operation Backlight broke at 5 a.m. Doors opened where doors never open. Patrick got cuffed in his lake house robe. A federal judge who'd smothered whistleblowers met a locksmith in a jacket that said truth, a chief of staff learned encrypted, doesn't mean erased. And Rowan tried to visit me before they visited her. She didn't kick the door. She walked through the window I'd been meaning to fix and sat on my couch like a shadow that learned manners. Walk away, she said. I can buy you a quiet life somewhere warm. No headlines, no trials. Just peace. My hands were steady. Peace without truth is just silence dressed up. Nice, I said, then your life ends in 30 seconds. She smiled at her own line. You should check your watch, I told her. The red dot found her sweater. Federal agents. Don't move. She dropped the gun, not out of fear, but respect for the game. That's fine. Myths don't testify, defendants do. Cleaning that mess took months, and Cole did the thing I didn't see coming. He stepped down. Power blinded me, he said in the boardroom. Tie loose. For the first time, I thought it could protect the people I love. It didn't. He slid an envelope to me, interim CEO. The room went quiet, the way rooms go quiet right before an old habit says, "Don't you dare." You want the maid to run the company? Franklin asked from the far end. A friend of Patrick's who liked to smirk at the word help. I didn't raise my voice. I want the truth to run it, I said. I'm just the person who won't pretend it's expensive. I said yes, not for the title, but because rot grows back fast once the news cycle turns. We cut vendors tied to the shelves. We opened a line from every floor, straight to my office, where you could report what didn't smell right, without handing in your career. We rewrote the mission statement in words you don't need a lawyer to read. First dollars. We clawed back, went to the Elise Ashford Foundation. Lawyers for whistleblowers, rent for folks fired for being honest. Daycare for anybody who needs a safe place for their kid. While they stand up and you rebuild a house by protecting the people who sweep it, not everyone clapped. Franklin tried to slip a payroll optimization that would have axed the folks who keep the lights on. Someone in HR sent me the email at 2 a.m. at 9. I put it on the board table. You're done, I said. He laughed until Ms. Delacourt. Oldest voice in the room said, I second the motion. He learned what a lot of people learn too late. The help isn't helpless. They're just busy. And when they put the broom down and pick the evidence up, you will see what honest work looks like. Rowan's trial was a circus without clowns, gray jumpsuit, eyes flat. 45 years without parole, the judge said. Enterprise and conspiracy. She smirked. Once I wanted tears and didn't get them. That's okay, the verdict gave us enough. I visit Elisa's grave on quiet mornings with coffee, because she liked the smell better than the taste. I tell her about the young custodian who shook as she handed me a flash drive like a lit match, and how we moved fast enough to keep her name off the headlines. I tell her about the night guard, whose badge died whenever a certain lawyer walked in, and how we fixed it. I tell her about the new words on the wall, and the way people stand a little taller when they pass them, and yeah, sometimes there's a note in my mailbox with no return address. Heavy paper, expensive ink, justice forgets. People do not, no signature, didn't need one. Some messages are less about who sent them than about what they dare you to do next. So here's where I leave it with you. If it were you, would you have stood up in that courtroom? Would you have said, stop the trial, when your job, your safety, your whole quiet life sat on one side, and a man everyone learned to hate sat on the other? And when a recording sounds perfect, do you trust your ears or the person? You know, what do we owe the truth when it's inconvenient, messy, expensive? Drop me a comment and tell me where this hit you. The fake voice, the way people believed the neat story, the boardroom that thought the mop would never touch the microphone. Push back if you think I was wrong to take the job. Tell me what you've seen at work or in your town that didn't smell right, and what you did about it. And if you believe justice isn't loud, it's stubborn. Hit like so the quiet ones know they're not alone.